In my newsfeed today, I kept seeing the headlines with the words Donald is dementing, and at face value, that's not an uncommon theme, but the person who said it has an uncommon relationship to Donald Trump and the credentials to back up her analysis. I have the story that he doesn't want you to see coming up next. For now, let's call this mystery person Cognitive Whistleblower PhD, and I will take you through her intimate and expert opinions about Donald Trump's bizarre streams of consciousness, as reported in the Daily Beast article with Donald is dementing in the title. First, she addresses the former president's cognition after his rambling, incoherent answer to a question about child care with the declaration that he is demonstrably untethered from reality.
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. I was somebody, we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue, but I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that, because look, child care is child care. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time.
Next, the Cognitive Whistleblower PhD, who I will reveal to you in just a few seconds, said, "It's deeply disturbing that somebody as unhinged and incoherent as Donald Trump is allowed to run for the presidency in the first place. She is disturbed by a lack of urgency from the media, and her concern is supported by this MSNBC report posted today."
This was a room of economic experts wanting to hear him explain his policies and legislation. Since then, top economic thinkers, including the woman who asked him that very same question, have blasted Trump's incoherent word salad. But if you didn't watch that with your own eyes and instead relied on legacy media outlets for the interpretation, for the story, you might have been left with a totally different perspective. Outlets like the New York Times, Politico, the Associated Press all presented the bizarre spectacle as if it was a normal policy-driven speech focused on tariffs, low taxes, and supposed explosive economic growth. We are now nearly 10 years into covering Donald Trump, and the media is still choosing to sanitize Trump's nonsensical ramblings to make them more palatable for the voter.
So have you guessed who Cognitive Whistleblower PhD is yet? As I mentioned, she is very intimate with Donald Trump, and that's because she's a family member. And it also happens that she holds a PhD in clinical psychology. I'll let Mary Trump, niece of Donald Trump, continue with her unfiltered analysis that Donald is dementing and how she thinks the media should be covering his mental meltdown.
We should not want anybody who's as severely ill, who has the kinds of psychiatric disorders Donald has, to be anywhere near power. I've said this before. Just as during his trials, or one trial, I guess, when all the indictments were coming out, and I think he had 93 indictments in 4 different jurisdictions at one point, there were panels of lawyers and legal experts on every show, talking about that, right? All right, cool. Well, we also need panels of experts in authoritarianism and fascism to discuss things like Project 2025 and Donald's increasingly authoritarian behavior. The way he speaks about undocumented workers and what his plans are for them, right? We need panels of mental health professionals, clinical psychologists, psychiatrists, neurologists, neuropsychologists, sociologists, to talk about this stuff too. Like, why can't we do that? There's this thing called the Goldwater rule. Well, guess what, guys? We're way past that. We need to have these conversations. And yeah, I mean, there have been some people doing this for years now, but we need to do it in a more consistent and organized way.
This Donald is Demented report is presented on the eve of the first presidential debate between Trump and Kamala Harris, and I'm very anxious to see if Harris makes an issue of it directly or indirectly, or if Donald Trump goes off the rails and his debate performance results in the media addressing the elephant in the room like it did for Joe Biden. But the difference is the Democratic Party not only pivoted and recovered, but they are thriving with renewed hope and momentum. Whereas if Donald Trump trips over his tongue tomorrow and or rambles incoherently, the Republicans have no plan B and the campaign will be in free fall. And now I want to know what you think of the media coverage of Donald Trump's cognitive decline and what's your prediction for his debate performance. I'm Dan, thanks for watching, and let's continue to occupy democracy together.